everybody, I'm Richard Thomas.
And I'm Tiffany Thomas.
And we want to welcome you to the Lionheart Institute podcast. We are in the interview section and we are excited to have one of the greatest guests that we've had. I know I say that about each one of our guests, but I once said that there was not a cougar I ever liked. This is a cougar I actually love. This man is an inspiration from the inside out. He's facing a mess, but he's always turned all of his messages into messages. He is triumphant. He has a beautiful young daughter, and I hope that he'll get into that, who's facing a tragedy, and she's turning that tragedy into something triumphant, not only for herself, but for the world around us. And it's so exciting to see and to hear the story of Derek Sparks. He is truly inspirational. Derek, welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Come on, catch me up a little bit, Mr. Cougar. How's life on the Palouse, my friend? They still couging it?
Hey, man, we trying, man. We got a new coach. Coach Rolo's in the house, man. So we gonna give him a shot at the title. Oh man, but he got some big things to fill. You know, Coach Cleats was doing pretty well there, going to a bowl game every year. So he didn't quite beat the Dogs, but I think he left the program in good shape.
He was making ruckus. There ain't no doubt about that, man. And everywhere he lands his feet, it seems like he's churning up something. But yeah. Derek and I go way back to me watching him in high school football. He was an inspiration because he had this smooth style of slide to him, almost like an Eric Dickerson. But when you hit him, you regretted hitting him because he would dislocate a chin strap or two on his way to the touchdown, to the end zone. And we first met really kind of in what was called the Snow Bowl. Man, you played in that game pretty significantly, right?
Yeah, man. I played in the 92 Snow Bowl and the 94 Snow Bowl.
Which one was your favorite?
Man, the 92 one was exciting because that was my first one.
Right.
Yeah.
We were fresh.
Yeah. I think it was pretty special. You guys came to town, Napoleon, you were playing fullback, Hewitt was at QB.
Yes,
you know, you guys came out with no shirt on, with your guns out. It was cold
so
as
good.
We
didn't have no heaters on our sideline. Man, I remember like it was yesterday. 92, we're fresh off a national championship. We came out, I had my shirt tucked up in those days, all under my rib cage, so my one belly muscle was showing. And I came out, man, I went into that locker room right after warm-ups. I was tearing the trash cans up trying to find me a plastic bag. Because, man, it was so cold. I knew at that moment we was in trouble, man. The one thing that we did do, though, is we got our butts whooped, and then we turned around and went to a Rose Bowl. So we were all right. We licked our wounds and went on about our day. But Derek, he put it on us that game. You had dang near 100 yards, didn't you?
Man, no. So I was playing behind Right Fair.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I was a sophomore playing behind him. I got some carries in the game. It was fun. I know I went up and went mano a mano with Lawyer a couple times. It was like, holy smokes, he brings it.
Yeah, he played the position in a different kind of a way.
Yes. But man, talking about a great experience coming from California, and you know, again being in the snow. You know, it was just because my first year playing in the Apple Cup, we played at you guys' house.
Right.
On Montlake, and I was just a freshman, so I got some carries in that game, and that game was bananas, man. You guys had that defense, man, and holy smokes.
I try to tell everybody that I was probably the third best back in the country in 91, just playing straight up red shirt and just playing against our defense because having to face them every single day in you know, one-on-ones and doing 11 on and just kind of playing scout team and just doing all that, man, they would hurt us. They would hurt our running backs. So it's good to see you survived it.
Man, and, you know, and likewise, you know, going against the Palouse Posse every day, and Mark Field and Ron Childs and all those, Chad Eden, you know, man.
Great memories. I played with Chad for just a short minute in Baltimore. That man was out of control, bro.
Yeah, He was different.
He flew to the ball. I'll give him that, and as did all of you. You guys had that Curtis crew that beat me in a state championship, and I think half the team ended up there, and they were whooping up on and doing damage throughout the country in those days, man. If it wasn't for the dogs, they probably would have won the pack. But they were some troublemakers. So
oh yeah.
so that experience, I'm waking up one day and you're in Pullman, straight out of California. What is that like?
Man, honestly, for me, it was kind of like a refuge for me growing up and being in California, and kind of my story of playing at 3 different high schools in California and all of the controversy and drama that went along with that. One of the reasons why I chose to be a crew was, number one, Napoleon went to University of Washington, so I know I wasn't going over there.
Yeah, that inspired me to move from running back to fullback just as quick as you decided to go to a different college.
Exactly. And so, I got a call. I had one recruiting trip left. I got a call from Ted Williams, who was recruiting me to UCLA, and Ted said, "Hey, I got the job up at Washington State. I want you to come up and check out the campus." And lo and behold, man, I had one trip left. Back then we got 5 official trips.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so I took my last trip to Pullman, and man, I ended up loving it, man. Imagine that.
It's powerful. Now, it's a pretty tight-knit community as far as football players go in general across the country. Then you look at Pullman, it's very closely knit. I remember going there and visiting and being very, very close to wanting to go there myself because of that family atmosphere, that community. But then the campus itself, there's not many minorities in general on the campus. What was that experience like? Because you go from a world that's pretty diverse, as I remember, to a non-diverse Pullman, yet the community embraces you significantly, right? I mean, there's a lot of open hearts, open arms in Pullman.
Absolutely. No, I think you hit it right on the head. We stuck out like a sore thumb. They knew we were athletes.
Right.
But man, you're talking about an experience that kind of gets you ready for life, man, and for the world, because that's how the world is. The world is, even today, living in the Seattle area, a lot of times, I'm the only one in the room.
Right.
Very few of us are folks of color. So, my experience in Pullman got me ready for the real world. So in real life. So I definitely am thankful to, have had that experience, man. And so I was, how college is, you have to grow up real quick.
Blink of an eye.
Daddy ain't there.
My first few days, I remember visiting home. I think I was home 3 days, and I visited home 5 days asking to come back. So,
yeah.
I get it, man. That's a long ways from it.
Okay,
Yeah.
So I heard a story, Derek, that in high school, you went to 4 different high schools in 4 years playing football for each of these schools. And it actually ended up launching the book that you did, which is, I believe, an autobiography called Lessons of the Game. So
That's correct.
You gotta elaborate a little bit on that. How does one kid go play at 4 different schools throughout their high school career?
Yeah, man, it's been a storied experience. So I'll say I started off. My first school was actually in Texas, the town that I grew up in, Warden High School, and then I left Warden and I moved to California. Basically to chase my dream of playing big time college football, and that came by way of a coach that saw one of my videotapes and asked my uncle, "Hey, who is that kid? We got to get him out here to LA." And man, that's all it took. It took a phone call with the coach and my uncle and said, "Hey, you want to come to Hollywood?" And you didn't have to ask me twice.
I know that's right.
And so I grew up. A lot of people don't know, man. I grew up in a small town of 800 people
Man.
called Hunger Force. And you want to talk about country. I'm talking about country. And it just blows people's mind, man, that I tell them that where I'm from. And then I left, man. I was really, searching for something. I knew what I saw around me as a young boy growing up with just my mom and my grandmother and all my mom's sisters, that couldn't be it for me. And I didn't have a dad growing up. And so my internal drive came from the fact that I didn't know who my dad was.
Wow.
And so I developed this relationship with my uncle Jerome, my mom's sister, who became my father figure. And so I would send him newspaper clippings and videotapes of me playing football, and he would say, "Wow," he was like, "Hey kid, you got something here." And to have that kind of response from him, someone I looked up to and had a lot of admiration for, was pretty cool for me. And it gave me what I needed at that time, because I was a pretty broken young boy growing up in a poor community, not knowing who your dad is, as you can imagine, is
Mm-hmm.
it could be tough, man. So
Yeah.
so I used that as my internal drive, and I took that plane ticket. And I remember my uncle told me, he said, "Hey, don't look back." And I didn't, man. I moved to Cali, and then that's when all the drama started. The
Right.
problem was that I was a pretty good football player, and it was like everything was on the house.
Now, were you? Was your uncle in California, or how did that translate? Because obviously, so many of us and from our communities are looking for an inspiration, a role model, something that you've become 10 times over for so many young men and so many young women, a role model that they can really look to. And it doesn't really matter what their home situation is. When they see a Derek Sparks, they know, hey, there's a spark of hope. There's a chance. I got a fighting chance if I'm in his presence. But for your uncle, was it something you had to go search out? Was he in California, or did he just make himself available to you? What is that like?
Yeah, he was actually in California, and I would always hear my mom and her sisters talk about my big uncle in California, who happened to be a pretty good athlete himself. And the reason why he landed in California was because he was playing Major League Baseball, or minor league at that time. He was playing minor league. He had a couple tryouts in the majors, didn't make it, and that's kind of how he ended up in California. And so, he told me, "Hey kid, you got next." And so I took that and ran with it. And I remember, the head coach at the school I went to first, he always said, "Hey, if you don't like it, you can go home." And I said, "Hey,
Wasn't no going home for you, huh?
with no chance in heck was I going back there."
You
Hey, I
tell
remember to right across the street from the stadium, the high school stadium. I had my own apartment.
Wow.
So if you can imagine, 15 years old in California, in LA, having your own apartment right across the street from the school, fully furnished, and all I had to do was just wake up in the morning, brush my teeth, put on my clothes, and go to school, and then go to football practice.
Now, in that state, is the pressure of having to perform, is that clear to your mind, or are you just having fun? You're just thinking an opportunity's been created, or are you literally like a professional athlete knowing, hey, next up is right around the corner if I don't produce?
For me, I had no clue. I was a country bumpkin. Hey, if I tell you I didn't understand the magnitude of what was going
Right.
on, so
Right.
I started running touchdowns as a freshman. And it just so happened, man, how God works. Here I am at this new school, don't know anyone, and I'm on a team that has guys that played in the NFL for many years. Like, I'll name one, Bob Whitfield. Bob Whitfield stands 6'7", 290 pounds. And so people ask me how I got all those yards as a sophomore. And I said, man, I had an NFL O-line. That's why,
Right.
And so if you can imagine just being in that environment, you know, a new state, and a new situation, new team, really on my own because my uncle wasn't there all the time. He had to work,
Mm-hmm.
and so I had to grow up pretty fast. And so if I could paint a picture, so when I got there in the summer and participated in workouts, the season starts. I'm riding the pine because I'm this young player.
Right.
Right. Third game of that season, the fullback goes down with an ankle injury. So I find myself in a football game.
Right.
And like my uncle always said, don't look back.
Mm-hmm.
And man, I end up being
Don't look back.
Yeah, I end up being the state player of the year at 15 years old, sophomore.
Oh my God.
Come on.
You talk about living your dream and chasing your dream, and you looked around and I was looking around me and saying, no way, like when they said Hollywood, this is really Hollywood.
It's a Hollywood story, at least, right? I mean, one person's ceiling is another man's platform, and you took what was kind of the height of what the other fullback could do, and took it to a whole nother dimension.
Took it to a whole nother dimension, and I really felt bad because he was a senior.
You're right.
And he had the same aspirations that I had, and he wanted to get a Division I scholarship to get his school paid for, and I remember his story ended, and it was a bad one. He ended up quitting the football team, and so I harbored some feelings about that because, I liked the young man.
Mm-hmm.
He was a cool, teammate, and took me under his wing, and then lo and behold, he gets hurt, and that's it.
How do you walk students through that today? Because I know you have to deal with that as a coach. You have to deal with that as a former player. I know that there was guys that I played with had far more talent, and people ask me all the time about the NFL, which, for me, I was fortunate enough to at least pour my cup of coffee. I didn't even get a chance to sip it, but I had it poured and set in front of me, and it's over. But the NFL stands for the not for long league, obviously, and sports are just that way. So how do you handle players around you now? It's saying as a sophomore, it affected the way that you thought. What is your message to students now in preparing for that, or being aware that possibility is real?
I think just the message of there is no guarantees in the game of football or any sport is, you're looking to, go on and play professionally. It's so competitive, and you just never know how long your body's going to hold up. And so I always tell at least the players at Pacific Lutheran, man, you got to make sure you prepare yourself to do something else. You don't want to, finish up and God forbid something happens and you get an injury or whatnot, and you don't have anything to fall back on. And so I make sure, through my own story, tell them, hey, I can tell you some stories of guys that found themselves in a situation, and had they had the opportunity to do it over again, they probably would change some things.
Mm-hmm.
And so a part of how I teach and how I approach it is really you getting young people prepared for the game of life.
So good.
Thank God I had football, man. You know what I mean? The football got me ready, man. I'm talking about battle tested. This game of life, because I played football, man, it's okay.
It'll toughen you for the fire. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm curious, Derek, how you said that you had, basically at 15, you woke up and you played football or you worked on that was pretty much your life. So what was academics like for you? And, because something that Richard and I talk about a lot is the amount of students that fall through the cracks educationally, especially for people of color, and they're kind of just overlooked. And you've got these incredibly gifted students that all of a sudden find themselves academically unprepared for the next phase of life or the next level.
They look like it just as athletes.
Right, absolutely. So, how did you deal with your academics being this incredibly star football player? And how does that carry through to what you do today?
I think I'll take it back to the household, man. My mother was not going to let me be just a football player, from elementary all the way up to middle school. My grades had to be on point. I had to make sure I was getting my homework done. I had to make sure that I had B's and A's. Like, the bar was so high for me as a student, to where when I was on my own, and I was in California, I didn't know any better. I always took the academic piece seriously, and no one could tell me that I didn't have to go to class, which is, when you're a prize athlete, there's a lot of things you can get away with, but I wasn't playing those type of games with my education. But again, that was something that was instilled in me, and so when I'm working with young people today, one thing that I see that's missing is that home life and that home piece. Everybody's so focused on the athletic prowess of the kid, and they forget that you can't have one without the other.
So true.
And so, and then, granted that there's a lot of distractions that we didn't have, Richard. These kids have so many more things that's taking their mind off of, what they can be, because they're playing the video games and they got the smartphones and they got the social media. Man, I can't even fathom what it would have been like if me and you had Twitter back in the day, right?
Oh Lord.
No, I can't imagine it, man. Tecmo was just barely coming out by the time I was half grown, so it's wild to think about Twitter and Tinder and Facebook and Instagram, and I think as many butts as they got shaken on Instagram, I don't know if I would have got a wink of sleep, man. It would have been trouble.
So, and so in my adult life, coaching college football, you got to have Twitter. You got to have your social media game going. That's the way you can, recruit kids and see game film and interact. And so if you're not doing it, you get left behind, right? So I can only imagine what these kids are going through and these teams are going through. So, so for me, just trying to encourage them to always do the right thing, to make sure that, hey, if you want to do that, make sure you manage it. It's like anything. When you go to college, you're gonna have to manage your schedule. You have to manage your classes, your social life. If you're playing sports, you got to manage that. Watching film in the weight room, that's a lot for any one person to.
It is.
Yeah.
And recruiting is so different nowadays. I mean, it used to be a day you just had to be the best player on your team, outwork everybody in your conference, find a way to become all-state, get your name in the paper. Yeah. And, I was fortunate in a lot of ways to have a great high school coaches for me in my life, and a phenomenal home life from the standpoint of my parents, my mom and my dad. And then, of course, Dr. Wilson, who was my principal. And they always would tell me, Rick, don't read your own newspaper clippings. Now, of course, I didn't listen to him about reading them, because I would be the first one there to go get them. My 25 cents would get me 100 papers. That's what I looked at. But I gave them out as gifts. I'd give them around the community. But I never really took my own press clippings too seriously because of what you're saying right there. It's like, you got to take it serious. But I look at a guy like yourself. You're basically living on your own across the street from your high school. #1 player in the state of California, essentially, which is some of the greatest athletes in the world, no less. In the United States just alone, in the sport of football alone, some of the greatest athletes, period, are playing running back in California. How in the world do you inspire yourself? I know what you're telling me about class and all those things, but was it immediately from willpower, or was it, 15 years of ingrained discipline, or what really was it that made that academic spark so important? I mean,
Really, it was ingrained. When I tell you I was scared of California for about a year, I was scared of the gang activity,
uh-huh,
which is why I left that first school. I was playing with Bloods and Crips, man. I was in Long Beach.
right?
I was in the city league. I was playing against Crenshaw. I was playing against Dorsey High School. I was playing against Long Beach Poly. I mean, you talk about the stuff you see on TV.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, this is real.
You took your helmet, ran your butt across the street, and went to sleep.
Hey, look, you would have called me hanging out, or anything like that, man. I was in that apartment, and I was locked up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you're going to have to explain how you go from that to then going to 3 additional high schools over the next few years.
2 additional.
Or 2 additional
you went to
high schools.
Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah.
So what made you move to the other 2 schools?
Yeah, so imagine this. So I'm at the first school in Long Beach, California. We play in the city championship in the LA Coliseum where USC plays, right? And so if you can imagine how big that stage was for me, being 15 years old, fresh out of Texas, all of a sudden I'm on this big stage, and man, it just blew me away. It ended up being all state as a sophomore, player of the year, all of the accolades. But what happened was the original coach that recruited me from Texas to this school got the job at a private school about an hour away.
Okay.
Gotcha.
And so literally when the semester ended and we went on break for Christmas, I never went back to that school.
Oh my gosh.
And let me tell you, talk about front news, LA Times.
Oh my goodness.
SPARKS runs to private school. I mean, the headlines, if you can imagine. And I went from
You the original LeBron, man. Come on, bro.
I'm telling you, that's why I had to write a book about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no doubt.
So here I am at this new private school with all these rich people. I go from an apartment to now I'm in a 4-bedroom house. And they reach back to Texas and grab my cousin to play quarterback. And now he's at the new school with me. All our tuition is paid. We got keys to the school. I mean, it was like being in Hollywood when I tell you. Some of my teammates are movie stars now, like Eddie Cibrian, who is married to Leanne Rhymes. He was my kicker on the team, Eddie.
Oh wow!
We used to hang out. We're in Encino in these mansions, and if I tell you what goes on in those mansions, years are gone.
We're gonna have to pray holiness over us so we can find that out.
Absolutely. So when I say literally, I went from a small community to now being in California. It was mind blowing, and it was kind of like I was in a daze for a while. Like I was living this dream, and I needed someone to pinch me to wake me up.
Yeah, for sure.
I was at school with Barry White's daughter, Montclair Prep, where Michael Jackson went to that school. I mean, countless and countless of famous people in the music industry, the movie industry. And I remember we didn't spend a dime. We didn't pay for anything.
Wow.
And so my cousin moved out, and then they went in and moved my other uncle from Georgia to come out to be a assistant football coach.
Wow.
He was the highest paid coach in the state.
He's doing well for himself.
All he was doing was on the clipboard.
Sparks for 7 more.
Oh my goodness.
17 on that rumble.
You know?
Sparks breaks away in a 59-yarder. Did you even let your cousin throw to you, man? You just took every hand off.
Hey, that was the kicker. We did not throw the football.
Oh my god.
Man, they just wanted you to be comfortable.
Hey, look, exactly. Our tailback, Michael Jones, he was 1 year older than me. He ended up signing and going to play for USC. And we had the #1 backfield in the nation. And all of a sudden, this little tiny, small private school is being recognized on a national level pretty much overnight. You know, and so it was definitely, you know, a benefit there for the school, obviously. But man, I had the time of my life, man. I rushed for 2,000 yards and 35 touchdowns. Hey, LA Times running back of the year. I was living my dream, right? Here I am, 4 kids from a small community in Texas. Now all of a sudden, you get just a glimmer of light where you can go and make something of yourself. And man, I took it serious. I really did. You know, you didn't catch me drinking, and yeah, I hung out with the fellas, and my eyes was like this big when I was hanging out with all these white boys and all the stuff that they do, and I was like, holy smoke, your mama let you do that?
The difference in the world we lived in, right? So how did you ever feel that as a young man? I mean, being a person of color, obviously, moving from Texas to the inner city of Los Angeles, which I know what that's like growing up there, to where you ended up this year, and you're probably pretty much the only diversity in the school at this point now, right? Did you feel that? Were you made to feel that, or were you just fortunate to rise above it because of your skill level?
You mean being at the new school?
Right.
You know, something happens when, and Richard, you can attest to this. Something happens to you and to your surroundings when you are a football star or an athletic star, whether it's basketball, baseball, football, whatever it is. And man, they treated us like we were gods, man. I didn't face any kind of racism during that era of being with my white teammates and being in that environment that was predominantly white. It was all love.
Wow.
It was all love. It was like, dude, they worshiped literally the ground that we walked on. We did not do anything wrong. I mean, it was just bizarre. You know, and for me, coming from a small town, now I'm in a big city. Like, again, I didn't know any better. I was like, well, I guess this is just kind of how it is, right? And to this day, I have some of those relationships with some of my teammates and folks that I met along the way, and we still like brothers, man. We still close.
It's powerful.
I have to ask, with as incredible of a story as your high school career was, any chance we're going to see your book come to life on the big screen or on television? Because, man, would it be an amazing story to watch.
You know what? People ask me that all the time, and I've had a couple contracts in my hands that, you know, didn't sit right, and folks are in it for the wrong reason, and they want to embellish it and make it something else, and I walked away from it. You know, and one thing that I can say is that I never sold the rights to the story. So, in God's timing, you never know what can happen in the future.
Because of course you end up your last school, which I hope you get into real quick too, because you started at the time you went to that school a winning tradition that was somewhat there, but really ran for years after you created that environment your senior season that really the head coach, I don't know if he was at your first or your second year or where he was at in that process, but he ended up coaching there 10, 20 years, something remarkable if I remember correctly, and really had a national impact as far as his style of coaching. Tell what that effect had on you, because it is going to be a great movie whenever he wants to tell the story.
Yeah.
His high school career is remarkable enough, but now you mess around and you hear what he did in college.
Mm-hmm.
Then you mess around and find out what kind of a coach he's been.
Mm-hmm.
The story hasn't been told yet because he hasn't finished writing the chapters. But tell that last school. Tell where that happened.
So when I transferred, so everything blew up at the new school, the private school, right? And of course, it was an argument over, power. My uncle versus the coaches and who was going to be in charge. So fast forward, we leave and we go to Modern Day High School. Now, if anybody knows anything about Modern Day, they are the powerhouse, St. John Bosco, Modern Day, IMG, all of the big time high school programs you hear about today. Well, back when I transferred to Modern Day, they hadn't had a winning season.
Mm-hmm.
And, that was 25, 30 years ago.
Wow.
I went over there and messed around and lit that thing on fire. And coach has been there for 30 years and he ain't lost. I don't think he's lost one season.
Right.
Wow.
I remember watching, tell me if this is true. I remember some of your high school film because, obviously that's what we did. We watched everybody that was basically in our class or above us a grade or below us a grade.
Right.
I remember seeing film in the beginning of your season where the stands are half empty, if I remember correctly. And these are home games. And then by the end of it, it's like you've got 15, 20,000 people at your games. That's how quickly it turned on a dime. And I'm sure he's a phenomenal coach. But what a gift having Derek Sparks your first season coaching, right?
Yeah. And ironically, I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know anything about the school. All I knew that we were leaving, one school and headed to another school for my senior year. And lo and behold, the CIF, the league, did not let me play for 3 games. So now I'm at this new school and I'm sitting on idle because the old school is holding up my transcripts. And they told me, back to your point, had I experienced anything related to being marginalized or racism or anything like that, yeah, I finally figured out that my job was just to run the football.
Right.
And as soon as I couldn't deliver that service to that school and I left, they told me that you'd never play football in California again.
Wow.
And there I am, it's my senior year. It's important to me to finish up strong when I started. I'm at a new school. I'm suited out, been practicing with the team, but I can't play.
And most people don't realize this. Making the jump from high school to college is almost more challenging than making the jump from college to the NFL, because college coaches get hit with so many recruits that it's very difficult for them to stay on top of it. So for you moving, even though you're California Player of the Year, you're All-State, being on people's watch list as far as from a negative standpoint, all of a sudden I'm sure you're getting recruited, and I know your recruiting lists remain large, but he's probably the number 1 guy in the country at that kind of a level. Notre Dame, Miami, Michigan, I can only imagine the effect just the negative press from the former school had on the possibilities of what was in front of you.
Yeah, it was devastating. I committed to UCLA early on, and that's where I was going. And when I transferred to Modern Day, man, it all blew up in my face. The negative press. Now all of a sudden I'm back in the headlines for transferring again. 4 schools, 4 years, Mr. Controversy, SPARKS speculation, maybe going back to Texas. All of this negativity was spiraling out of control, and people wanted to know what the hell is up with this SPARKS kid.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember at the time, Coach Donahue, the head coach at UCLA, he sent his assistant over, Greg Robertson, to meet with me and my cousin and Bruce Rollinson at Modern Day, and broke us the news that, hey, we're going to pull our scholarship off.
What a mistake.
Wow.
And man, you talking? Hey, we cried, bro. I got
Yeah.
we broke down right there and cried. Um, and sure enough, man, third game of the season, um, I got the phone call that they were going to allow me to play my senior year. And I touched the ball 3 times, and I ran for 263 yards on 3 carries, and it's still in the record book.
I
Wow.
know that's right.
I mean, you talking
Oh my
about
gosh.
it was an explosion. The first time I touched the rock in a Monarch helmet with the 3 stripes, I went for 80 yards for the line of scrimmage from
Mm,
scrimmage,
Oh my goodness.
and it was 15,000 people in the stand.
Wow.
man.
People was coming to see, and it's kind of like
Could he deliver?
huh? Yeah. What was all the fuss about? I had teammates from all the schools that I had attended come to the stadium to see, because they kind of knew what was going to happen, right? I had
Right.
TV cameras there, and then guess what? At the time, the LA Rams was playing in Anaheim. So the linebacker, what's his name? Last name is Green. Uh, Played linebacker for the Rams for a long time. He was there, and he was standing on the sidelines, and I remember when I ran that third touchdown, he told my uncle, he said, "Hey, Sparks can play for us right now."
I know that's right.
Oh man,
That's incredible,
He said
actually.
that's
Sparks can
terrible.
play for us right now.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
But honestly, man, that first game was like a movie in itself. And I remember my mother flew in from Texas, and Jerome, my uncle, told me that a kid was in front of her where they were sitting, and he was jumping up and down. And he turned and said, "Sparks is like God." Oh, it just cracked me up. I was
I
like,
know that's right.
so,
He's Jesus in cleats.
Right?
oh my God.
Muhammad in some shoulder pads. That's a bad boy right there.
That's
So,
You
insane.
you was
years
so bad
later,
you went into the huddle like Buddha and he came out vanished.
so,
That's what I'm talking about.
years later, man, you start hearing the stories. Even when I was writing the book, and I started to kind of pull the layers back on my experience as an athlete, just in the state of California, right? And all of the stories and all of the things that happened that I didn't even wasn't even aware of, a lot of it. But when
Right.
I started to do my own research, and really it was a healing for me, you know,
Writing the
to
book.
writing the book. Yeah.
And it's such a good book. I remember doing a few assemblies with you where entire schools would buy copies of the book. If I remember right, you even gave a scholarship or for an essay based on it, which is so powerful.
Yeah.
But it really is, and I'm sure it's been a long time since you wrote it. But right now, if it could hit the press afresh and anew, it would be a bestseller. It's an amazing book, well written, well thought out, and the storyline is so powerful
Right.
to where I know there had to be healing as you wrote it. But what's that got to be like? Because you weren't very old when you wrote the book, were you?
Yeah, I wrote it my senior year or my junior year in college.
Wow.
So when I would go home and in the summertime and go and work out and visit my uncle, and I hooked up with a gentleman named Stuart K. Robinson, and he's kind of like a Hollywood figure. Works with a lot of the actors and actresses on coaching them how to be on TV and all that stuff. He basically said, "Hey, I'll help you." You know, he was intrigued with my story, and so what he did for me was a blessing. He took me in the studio and he said, I just want you to talk. I want you to tell your whole story and I'm going to record it.
Wow.
And man,
Yes.
when we were done, we had it transcribed and we had like a stack of papers, like documents this tall.
And you
And
went to editing.
I went to editing. And I started creating chapters. I took that thing to Pullman with me, and that was my project.
That's
Wow.
powerful, man. Now, do
You know?
do you sell it on your website, or is there a place that people can get it now that would want
Yes,
their
oh,
kids to read it, or they want to read it
absolutely,
themselves?
absolutely. And I know we'll get into this in a little bit. So what I did is I pivoted and put it on the Cleats versus Cancer
Okay,
website
good.
because I
Okay.
want those
Perfect.
proceeds. Yeah, I want those proceeds to help our mission with around cancer and helping other families that are faced with my daughter. You know, I can say was because now she got the news that
Yeah,
a few months ago that she's cancer free. So
come on,
Wow.
all the prayers,
Yeah.
God is good, man. I'm telling
come
you,
on. It's
that's
powerful, man.
definitely powerful. You
And so
know,
make sure you get this book, everybody that's listening. Don't go to
Yeah.
Amazon. Go through his website because it's powerful.
And we'll list the
yeah,
website down below in the description so that way all of our viewers watch this will be able to have access to it.
So your
yeah,
edit. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
and how the publishing game works. If you buy it on our website, we get 100% of the proceeds. If you buy it off of Amazon, they get 60%.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Get it through. Get
that's
it
how
through
the
D
publishing
Sparks.
world works. It's kind of like being a musician, man. The
Hmm.
companies take all the money.
Right.
Don't let
So
it happen
true.
to you. So now
Uh,
here you are scribbling at college. You're editing your book.
Mm-hmm.
You're tearing it up. I mean, you're in a good offense for your skill set. You never had to catch a swing pass in your whole life, but now you're catching swing passes out the backfield, highlighting your running capacity. What are you anticipating as the next step of your career?
Man, honestly, it's what every kid, particularly black kid, is told from the time they pick up a football, the time they pick up a basketball, and somebody recognizes that they have a super athletic prowess is going to take everybody from, from degradation and poverty. You know, I was thinking that I was going to go and play in the NFL. You
And you had
know,
all the skills to do it.
that's what we're sold. That's what we were told since day one that, hey, my uncle he had told me that he was going to be my agent,
Hmm.
and he was acting as my agent in high school, which is why I had all these places to live for free and these cars to drive and
And he
all
did a
my,
good job.
you know, he was orchestrating all the deals, right?
Right.
And so when I see my friends, they always tell me, they say, man, you still spending high school money, huh? I'm like, man, come on
Come
now.
on. When you got a real job, you took a pay cut, huh?
Right.
So really, man, I'm in college, and I got to that point that I think most athletes get to when you hit the wall because it's so hard
Hmm.
physically, and you say, is this really what I want to do? And I remember as a freshman, I walked on campus. There were 6 running backs, and I was number 2 back in camp. And the pressure and the grind and the physical every day, waking up at 5 a.m. to be in a training room at 6. It took a toll, man. I start questioning, hey, man, is this really what I want to do?
Hmm.
Yeah.
You know, and I actually had doubt, and then they gave me put me in a quote unquote JV game against Walla Walla Community College, and I ran for 5 touchdowns. And they said, "Oh yeah,
This is
yeah,
gonna
this
be all
kid right
right,
here, he's going to be playing in the Apple Cup this year."
man.
You
Well, I
know,
think people forget, and like you're saying, the toll that it takes on your body. I think a lot of people who aren't playing football professionally, they forget that you guys have been playing football for a long time. Most of you, when you look at high school and then college, you've already played for essentially 8 years before you even get an opportunity to get to the NFL or get in the NFL. And some of you have been playing since elementary school. So that's a lot of years of your bodies going through a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and I remember showing up. I was 9th on the depth chart, man. So, I was the slowest, the fattest, and the ugliest. So I didn't have a chance in the world.
Oh man! So I think for me, man, I got to a point where I was on my own. I no longer had my uncle that was intervening and orchestrating deals behind my back and all that stuff. And I was able to become my own man. And what I figured out was the most important thing that I could do was to make sure I walked away from Pullman with a college degree.
Come on.
Wow.
And be the first in the history of my family to go to college and walk away with something to hang on my wall. So
that's so good.
And then I started getting banged up. I got hurt as a sophomore.
Right.
I think my only regret, if I had one, was not redshirting as a freshman.
Mm-hmm.
Because man,
people don't realize that jump from high school to college. Well, I tell them that the impact, the speed that you go from high school to college is more significant than the leap from college to Canadian football or NFL or back in the day USFL. That speed difference where every player is coming to hit you is tough. And you had a hamstring injury, right? Well,
no, I had a rotator cuff. I had front and back. Yeah, I ended up playing on it as a freshman. I should have had the scope and ended up playing on it, and ended up having to have front and back because it's just the wear and tear. And so here I am, was pretty much slated to be the starter as a sophomore.
Yeah.
And I had to get surgery.
Oh my goodness.
And so it's just those lessons that you learn. But for me, what I tell my players, and even when I was a head coach, is man, the real ticket to the game is making sure that you get an education.
Yeah.
So that when you're done playing whatever sport that you're playing, that you can take care of your family and you can live a meaningful life. Now, if that means you went on and played and made a lot of money, that's great. But you got an education and things to manage that money and know what to do with it, and not, majority of pro athletes, are broke 3-4 years removed from when they retire.
It's powerful truth, man. So you make a pivot from the world of sports. You're obviously extremely entrepreneurial. You're sought after motivational speaker. You and I bump into each other from time to time at that. What do you pivot into after football? And then how do you find yourself in coaching? What's that leapfrog?
I always thought and knew that I wanted to, and I think I was influenced by my Uncle Jerome, that I wanted to own my own business, right? And so I got the entrepreneurial spirit from him. And, right after college, I went and was in Santa Clara for a little bit with the Niners and did not make the football team. And I said, well, here we go.
Mm-hmm.
I always made that promise to myself that I wouldn't be a guy that hung on and worked out for the next 4 or 5 years trying to make a football team in the National Football League. Kind of my promise to myself. And so as soon as I had left Santa Clara, I went back to LA. And honestly, man, I was kind of relieved.
Isn't that powerful insight, that relief from not making it and being able to transition? Most people don't realize that the engine does turn off for a lot of guys, their sophomore, junior year in college, that the engine just runs out, and you live the experience because you love your teammates and you love the camaraderie of the game, but the fire for really running into brick walls is gone.
Right.
Right. Once your body starts talking to you and telling you, hey, I'm pretty much done. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's a reckoning that we all have to come to. You know, and so I was relieved. You know, I made the commitment, like I said, I wasn't gonna go and work out for another, 3 or 4 months to see if I can get on with another team or anything like that. And then that's when I released my book.
It's
You
powerful.
know, I released my book. I went on a book tour for Barnes and Noble, and here I am. I found myself, all over the West Coast, signing books, interacting with fans.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the state of Washington, and the reason why I stayed here is these folks out here treated me so well and kind of adopted me as one of their own, man. And so there was no way I was gonna, live in California, at that point.
It's funny that you say that because for so many of my dog fans and my dog family, they always take Wazoo as the ultimate enemy. But most of them that do that are from California. Most of us actually here from Washington. It is a huge rivalry. That is the biggest rivalry game that we feel
Right.
for 7 days.
Right.
But every other week of the year, for me, I'm a huge Cougar fan. I root for Cougars just like I root, not quite like I root for my dogs, but
No.
I root for them as well because to us, now I know that I don't say this to be disrespectful, but to us they were always our little brothers. I'm sure they felt the same way about us, in that you don't want your little brother to ever beat you, but you want him to run the rest of the block. So for us, when you say Washington love, that's a beautiful thing to hear that they treated you well here in Washington because we should treat Cougars well. We should
Yeah, absolutely.
treat Western well. We should treat Eastern well. We should draw a circle around the state and treat the graduates of this state better than any other place in the world. That's the truth.
I agree.
Yeah. And then
Let me throw PLU in there real quick. My bad.
Oh, look. No, man, it really is a wonderful thing how, I appreciate the rivalry, but I think it is a little different if you grew up here. I got a lot of love for Huskies and a lot of my Husky friends, and I think we don't see it the same. When you coming from California, yeah, it's a rivalry, but I think a lot of times it's more of just a game
Mm-hmm.
for us Californians, But I get it, there's a lot of energy around it. But even to this day, like I don't have a bad bone for any of my brothers in purple.
That's right.
And, yeah, to me it was just it was just a game, right?
A game that
So
we prefer to win.
yeah,
So tell me this, man, because you do the book tour. I start speaking with you from the word jump. You are off the charts when it comes to audience presence. I mean, he reads the room so very well. Not only are kids crying, and I know he does adult things, business things as well. Not only are kids crying, but you got teachers crying, hugging each other, trying to cover their tears. And you're doing the whole game time chant, and man, they are engaged, right? They are full out in it. But how do you start coaching? I mean, you know you're going to be an entrepreneur. You know you're going to release this book. You start speaking in conjunction with it. You're doing well here. You stay in the state. And then all of a sudden, you start taking on projects, whether it's individual kids or whether it's a football team that's in disarray at Garfield, and turn that program around. How does that happen? Through your personal struggles, because you're always at the top of the game. Why not go take a position at a Bellevue or jump straight to Wazoo? Why did you gravitate towards hurting kids in a situation that, even though you ended up winning the league championship, they hadn't won it in 20 years? So how does that happen?
well, I think first and foremost, I think you give me too much credit. You give me too much credit. I remember being this quote unquote motivational speaker. I didn't know what the heck I was doing. Man, hey, the thing that I always say to people is to call. we all got a call on our lives, right?
It's
Amen.
good.
And how God will take the most uncomfortable thing that you're ashamed of and turn it around for good.
It's
Yeah.
good, Derek.
So true.
And man, I used to hate to get up in front of people and speak. Um, and I had that country accent growing up. And then I moved out west and they made fun of me. But let me tell you, when I bumped into you, Richard, and I saw your gift, and I said to myself, "Oh gosh, man! Like I got to go back to the drawing board. This guy, he's good."
I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
And I remember we collaborated and how I watched you move and work the room, and how you were very charismatic. I was always so serious, right,
Mm-hmm.
about the content and the message, and I said, "Wait a minute, like I gotta figure out another way to reach these young boys and girls. I can't
Powerful.
come to them like I'm a another teacher, I guess, right?"
Right.
And
So good,
so
Derek.
I was able to watch you and study what you were doing, and honestly, man, that's how I got better at what I thought in my head I should be, right? And so God started saying, "Hey, you're overthinking it. I'm
Mm-hmm.
trying to use you, and I think sometimes what happened to us is we're so smart and intellectual, we want to do it our way,
It's good.
Yeah.
and I had to just say, hey man, answer the call and keep doing it. And I think I kept doing it and I kept doing it. And now, man, I can walk into a gym and I don't need notes. I don't need
Right.
talking notes. I don't, you tell me what the problem is and what the topic is, and I'm gonna get prayed up, and I'm gonna ask God to use me in this 45 minutes to reach some kids who's hurting, some
Mm-hmm.
adults who's hurting, the folks
Yeah.
who need to hear something positive, and man, it just flows. And then
Right.
I start telling my story, and that starts to bless people, and it's just amazing how I didn't go to school for that. I didn't set out to do that. I think when I released the book, it kind of dawned on me that I had something to say,
Yeah.
you know. And I remember what changed my life was I was at a bookstore in Bellevue, and I had a young lady come up to me, and her name's Mary Cliff, and she's a diehard Coug. And she said, "I'm a school teacher. I want to buy your book, and I want you to come talk at my school." So I said, "Okay." I'm thinking I'm gonna go and talk in our classroom to like 30 students, right?
Right.
I get to the school, it's like 600 kids in the gym.
Wow.
I'm like, okay, if this is not a setup, I don't know what is.
That's great.
And man, that changed my life. And I tell her to this day. Matter of fact,
Mm,
she texted me when the Apple Cup got canceled, and she was upset. And bless
Yeah.
her heart, she's still teaching. And I always tell her to this day, she brings me to her school out in Shelton, Washington, to speak to her kids. And
It's
I always
beautiful.
open up and I tell the kids my connection to Mary and how she's responsible for exposing me to my gifts and exposing me to my call.
It's powerful, Derek.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm just, my the way I live now, Richard, and Tiffany is I'm constantly saying to myself, answer the call.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
When when the unrest in America and folks who look like me were getting killed, answer the
Yeah.
call. When there's football program and someone asks you to come over and be the head coach and give them some inspiration, answer the call,
So good.
right?
Yeah.
And so I'm constantly when my daughter got sick with cancer, yeah, we could sit on our heels all day, but there's so many other kids out here and folks are fighting cancer. Answer the call, so that's how I've been living my life. I'm extremely blessed. I'm extremely blessed to have played the game of football, have been in the state, have met, individuals like you, um, who, given me some tools,
Thanks.
who've given me some information and things that I need to know. But at the end of the day, man, I think we're all on the clock. We're all on the clock like draft day, right? And so we got to continue to answer the call on our lives,
It's good.
whatever that may mean,
Mm-hmm.
in whatever lane that is in life, we got to continue to do that. And so, to see what you're doing through your platform is again, that's an inspiration to me that I ask myself, am I doing enough?
It's
You
powerful.
know, and so, but it all started from the game of football.
Isn't it wild that this little game called football, designed with a pigskin, wasn't even thought of that we could play it,
Right.
keep us off the field.
Yeah.
It's turned into such a gift for us to give to others.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a beautiful thing. And I look at the gift that is probably the most dear, and it has to do with extending my son's career.
Mm-hmm.
Gave him an opportunity to continue to play because he's a 5'5" or how tall is he? 5'8", maybe 5.
No, he's like 5'10" now.
Yeah, he messed around and was going to hit 6 foot, but during his freshman and sophomore and junior year, when schools are looking for you, he was 5'0" and sitting his butt on the sideline, scared to play. But you started this thing called Cleats Against Cancer.
Cleats versus cancer, yeah. That's an amazing, amazing thing that you do. And, obviously the idea came from the fact that your daughter had cancer. And that is,
Answer the call, he said.
and you answered the call, and you used that tragedy and that moment of probably lots of pain and fear and sadness, and you used it and you brought something amazing out of it. And the Cleats
Faith that
versus
works right
cancer,
there.
yeah, is a incredible charity football game for those who aren't from this area and don't know what this is. It's a high school all-star football game that is designed to be able to raise money to support kids that have cancer. And our son got the privilege to be able to play in that game.
Got an opportunity to
He
continue
did.
to play
He
football.
actually got an opportunity for a college to play football, and which is where he has been this summer. But tell us a little bit about that, because I know that is probably obviously very near and dear to your heart, and it's an incredible idea that sprang out of something that was very sad. So please share
It's
this.
a lot more than just an idea.
Well-
His brother is running a high school
Yeah.
administratively. He's a full-time running back coach at a college level, so the degree of strain on that.
I know.
He gets a message from God, hey, you're not a doctor, and I know I'm gonna let you tell the story but I can't help it. I get excited. So you talk about what I do, man. I just get out there and start jibber jabbering. This cat got a full-time schedule every which way but loose.
Yeah.
His daughter calls him. I know him because I know myself in a lot of ways. I'm sure he broke down. His faith is gone.
Yeah.
He says, let me respond in faith.
Yeah.
Says, what can I do? And created a full-time
I
job for
know.
himself while he got a 40-hour job in 3 different places. So man,
true.
this is so beyond inspiring because one of the kids at his deal sold 200 tickets to a game. That's how excited people are about this process.
Wow.
So 200 tickets, I don't know, just whatever that is. I just heard a brief thing about it where that's how excited people are to fight this disease, number one. Give kids a chance to continue to play. But it's really about beating this disease called cancer.
Yeah,
So.
for sure.
Absolutely. So we all as parents, we hope that we don't ever get a phone call or a knock on the door.
Yes, sir.
When it's something regarding our children that something bad has happened.
Yes, sir.
And so I got that call one day. It was June of Bailey's senior year. She had just finished high school, and she called and said, she wasn't feeling well, and that she was going to go to the hospital. And lo and behold, they knew it right away. It was something. They took her blood, and knew that she had cancer.
Oh
Wow.
my
And
goodness.
yeah, so she had acute lymphoblastic leukemia, which is a blood cancer.
Wow.
Um, and that is something that, it's throughout your whole body.
Yeah.
And so, it was very difficult. I remember breaking down and crying,
Mm-hmm.
and you start questioning, why did it have to be her?
Yeah. For
Here's a
sure.
kid who's done everything right, you know, getting ready to
Church
go
girl.
church girl, getting ready to loves Jesus, getting ready to go off to school, excited, never been in trouble, just
Wow.
everything
The
that
whole
you
nine. Yeah.
the whole 9 yards, man. And so that was my main thing was just like, man, why couldn't it be me? Why did it have to be one of the girls? You
Powerful.
know, and so and to her credit, and Zaylee is her name. Zaylee Fashion. She said, well, if I out of the three girls, if anyone was to get it, I'm glad it's me.
Oh.
Because I can handle it, and I'll just
Mm-hmm.
put it away. And I remember
That girl is a warrior. There's no doubt about it.
For sure.
she is a warrior. And I remember, and this made, the way she articulated this really made me break down. And she said, Dad, she said, either I'm going to beat this or I'm going to be with the Lord.
Mm.
She said, either way it go, it's a win-win.
Wow.
And man, I just start tearing up because I wasn't ready
Yes,
to hear.
sir.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, I wasn't ready to hear that, and I was like, well, we're not giving up here. Like
Yeah.
we're gonna fight, And then she said something to me a few days removed from that day. She said she was claiming the victory, and I said, I said, okay, we're gonna claim the victory then, And ever since
Yeah.
then, we started claiming the victory. I got some wristbands made up. I started leaning on some of my friends and saying, "Hey, will you guys wear this wristband for my daughter?" And before you know it, we had coaches as far as Texas wearing the wristband,
Wow.
Wow.
and claim it, and football coaches, head coaches sending their packages and messages about how they're claiming the victory. Whole teams
Mm-hmm.
uh, doing videos, shouting out, "Zaylee, we're with you, claim the victory." It was a testament that God is always working and He's always in control.
Amen.
So true.
Even in your worst day, man. And so man, I don't know. Something happened. One day I rolled over and wrote down a football game on my little notepad by my desk. It was like 3 in the morning, and I wrote football game on my notepad. And when I got up the next day, I went and ran it by one of my friends, and I said, what do you think about us having some kind of benefit football game or something like that? Then, because my daughter loves football, right?
Right.
Yeah.
She loves the Seahawks, and so I started chewing on that for a little bit. And Cleats versus cancer, baby. That's what happened.
That's awesome.
It's
Yep.
powerful, man.
And in 2 months, man, put together an all-star game.
Hold
I,
on. In 2 months, you put together an all-star game.
in 2 months, man.
Most cats can't put together an all-star game. It takes them 10 years to play in this thing.
I start questioning God again, like, man, are you sure we supposed to be doing this?
Wow.
Because it was a lot of work. But let me tell you, the high school coaching community here in the Seattle area rallied around the game. They rallied around the idea to have something that was going to highlight something that is so near and dear to a lot of people.
Right.
Because so many people has been, touched by cancer in some way, form, or fashion.
Yes,
You know,
sir.
you know someone right now. I know someone who has cancer,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
and or someone who's just diagnosed, or someone that lost their life,
Tragic.
and so it's just tragic. And so we said, okay, answer the call.
Yeah.
Answer the call. So we named the. I reached out to the Seahawks and I asked them what they supported, and so we called the trophy the Paul G. Allen Championship Trophy because even in his greatness and even in all his wealth, he couldn't beat cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Yeah.
and that's what really nailed it for me. It's like wow, man, this thing does not discriminate. It does not care about who you are.
Yeah.
And so obviously for what Paul has done for humanity, what he's done through the sports industry, everything he's done for the community and homelessness and all these things, right?
Yeah.
I said, what we're in the Northwest. Why not, name it after someone that that's really changed the world,
It's
you know?
powerful.
And Zaylee would love that idea. She's a avid Seahawk fan. And man, we're going into our third year, and it's we're blessed to be still doing it. And I see bigger and better things coming, as we move forward.
Now tell me on your website, it's Cleats versus Cancer, right? .org or .com?
.com.
Okay. So then we'll have that in the description. Are there places where people can volunteer, where they can give? Obviously there's a whole community of people who would love to get behind this project. Not just student athletes who want to play in the game, and some of that is for obviously beneficial reasons for others, but some of that's just purely, I love the game, I want to play. You gather, I think it was nearly 50 coaches, if I was correct to the last one that I heard about at least, of coaches that come and evaluate and coach and kind of get hands-on and really see what the next level would be like for these kids. But there's parents like myself now who, I'm another 9 years away now probably from being involved in football because I messed around and had me a little one looking at me half cross-eyed when I say that's daddy playing football. He's like, why? That's stupid. But we still want to be involved in a passionate cause.
Yeah.
They want to give their finances, their resources, their time, their advertising, whatever that might be. Mm-hmm. Are there ways for people to do that? Students, adults, companies?
Yeah. So what I would say is definitely the game day crew. It's such an undertaking because you got to have concessions going. You got to have, people man the gate. You got to have, even this, the pickup crew, making sure that, folks, all the food and all the stuff is thrown in the trash and trash crew and all that. You got to have, folks that are helping with parking. I mean, it is a production. You got to have a locker room attendant to make sure that the jerseys are getting turned in and stuff is getting collected from the players and all that. So what I would say definitely we look for game day volunteers. But the big thing for us this year is with COVID, we're obviously going to move the game from December to after the high school season because there's no other way to do it.
Right.
We still want to evaluate the high school guys, making sure that they're the right fit for the game.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many seniors in the state of Washington. Last year we ended up having 2 games. We had a doubleheader because we had an overwhelming response. Right.
So powerful. Mm-hmm. Had kids come up from California, if I remember.
Yeah, we had kids from Oregon, from Idaho, from Hawaii as well, and a kid from California.
It's powerful.
So I think what we're doing and the energy around it and folks seeing that it's worthwhile to continue it. I envision it being a day of football where, we have a triple header, a morning game, a 1 o'clock kickoff, and then the night game.
It's powerful.
And so with that, definitely going to need community involvement, folks to come out and help. You can always go to our website. There's a phone number there and an email. If you want to reach out and say, hey, Derek, any way I can help, we'll definitely get you signed up and get you a post that you can help out and play. And then for this year, the big thing that we're doing is we want to partner up with, I don't know, a corporation or an organization to be our title sponsor. You know,
Awesome.
there's
Nice.
so many players that want to play in it, and obviously, you know, you got to pay for it, right? And so I'm looking at ways that we can get it funded. And so my idea is on the jersey, we're going to have the logo. So it'll be the company's logo right here on the jersey. Uh, and so we've been talking
Nice.
to T-Mobile. We've been talking to one of my former teammates, Robbie Tobeck. He owns an insurance company. He underwrites the game every year to make sure that we're fully covered. But
Hmm.
now it's those relationships that I'm forming, you know, I'm going back to those folks saying, hey, you know, let's solidify a bigger stake in the
Bigger
game.
vision. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's really what we're looking for, someone that could come in and put their name on the game and say, hey, let's make this a benefit for more kids and more families and stuff like that. So,
And of
uh,
course, for a lot of these kids, it's their real taste at coaching. I mean, not to say that high school coaches around the Pacific Northwest aren't phenomenal. They are, but they're getting next level coaching at this camp for the 3 or 4 or 5 practices that you're able to get in before the All Star. So the level of experience for these kids is phenomenal. You've got kids out there competing literally. It's a fun game because it's high energy. You got kids flying around because for some of them they think, hey, this is my last opportunity at a
Right.
D3 or a D2. You know, most kids that are D1 are already kind of solidified that by the time you get to any All-Star game.
Right.
However, you know, I would never put it past somebody to mess around and rip another All-Star team for 300 yards. I mean, you always got a shot. If you can
yeah.
do in 3 carries what D Spark did, you always got a chance. So it's a beautiful situation for them to get their last football out, for the community to come together, fight a horrific disease,
Yeah.
find solutions together. Man, what you're all about, it's just powerful, man. I'm so proud of you, D.
Yeah, it's really amazing, and we were thrilled to be able to have our son be part of it and to experience
Messed around
that.
and got merchandise.
I know,
Spent money I
right?
shouldn't have spent, but
It
so
was-
it's one of my favorite jerseys that
Yeah.
he messed around and took with him. But I
I
want to hang it
know.
on my wall just because of what it's all about, you know.
Well,
And I have to say too, like kids' schools were so gracious to us. Let me tell you, man, they roll out the red carpet for us. They give us that field you know, the fee is like very minimal for what they get, you know, for what we
yeah,
get in return. You know, we get the
Powerful.
lights, we get the bathrooms, we get the concessions, we get the ticket booth, and we get an attendant all day.
That's
and,
awesome.
and they give us a great rate, and it makes it doable. And so, you know, this year we put their logo on the jersey, you know, because we wanted to recognize them as well. And so, uh, but yeah, I think it's definitely an opportunity for players that are kind of a mid-level player that's still looking for an opportunity. But also, our first year doing the game, Nate Kalepo from Rainier Beach, you know, he's playing at the U right now.
Hmm.
He made it a point that he wanted to play in the game because of his mom,
Absolutely.
who had fought in breast cancer.
Hmm.
yeah,
You know, so when we hear those stories, we say, hey, that kid has to play in the football game.
The quarterback for our team, he was really not getting a look from anybody. He ended up getting a full ride to San Jose State, not this year, but the previous year, as a result of that game as well. So
That's
there's
awesome.
some tremendous success stories out of it from that perspective.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I know something else that you do as well, Derek, is something called House of Champions.
Mhm.
And from my understanding is you teach life skills to athletes who are homeless, students who are homeless. Is that correct?
Yeah, so again, being in the situation at Garfield, you know, I had a relationship with Ted Howard, the principal there, and you know, he had reached out and was looking for a head coach, and of course I gave him some names of folks that I knew that I thought would be a good fit. And then he came back to me. He said, "Well, what are you available?" And I said, "I don't know if I'm available."
No, that's right.
And again, here's God saying, "Hey, answer the call."
Uh-huh.
And man, I remember going back to, I called my old college coach, Mike Price, and I said, "Hey, what do you think about me being a head football coach at high school?" And he said, "Hey, if you got an opportunity to be a head coach, you should do it." He said, I think you'd be a good fit for Garfield." And so, what the heck, right? And I went ahead and accepted the position. And lo and behold, when I got over there, it was a 1-19, so
Mm-hmm.
they weren't winning any football games. And I looked at it as a challenge. But what I found out was we had kids on the football team who were homeless,
Right.
Wow.
and it just blew me away how these kids, these players, these student athletes were coming to school, and I never even knew it.
That's crazy. Oh my goodness.
It's
Here I am, the
powerful.
head coach, and you think you know everything about your players. At least you set out to know everything about them. But I guess when you're in a situation like that, how someone will want to hide the fact that they're sleeping in the car,
Mm-hmm.
or sleeping, or someone lying on someone's couch for weeks on end. And so I had a young man that pretty much changed my life. A young man named Carrington, who was in the foster care system for a long time. His mom, who, bless her heart, was on drugs and got herself into a bad situation and lost her children. And I got the phone call one day from DSHS, and I never forget it. I was on the 5. We were on spring break, and I'm driving, and the phone rings, and it's a social worker. And I said, "Okay." And he said, "Yeah, we got one of your players here that says he wants to live with you." And I was
Wow.
like, "Wow." I had that
Yeah.
reaction. Like, I put the phone, like, I did one of those, and I'm like, "Huh?" And I remember he said, "Can you come pick him up?" And so I went to DSHS and walked in, and it was Carrington, and he had I never will forget it. He had a plastic bag with all of his stuff in it.
Man.
And man, it just broke my heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It broke my heart. And I told him, I said, "Man, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you?" And he was ashamed of the situation he was in.
Man.
So I answered the call. I started a program. I didn't want to just do it like off the cuff. I wanted to make sure that I did it the right way, and make
Yes, sir.
sure that it was a wraparound service, that we were really trying to help, you know, individual, a young man, or
It's a big
whomever.
picture issue.
Yeah, that when they're done with being in this situation, and they move on, that
Mm-hmm.
they can take care of themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I reached out to counselors. I reached out to other partners, and said, "Hey, we want to have a wraparound, an education, that's what you call it, wraparound service, so kid gets the true experience of what it's like to be normal, right?"
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, I started House of Champions, and man, that was something, man. Let me tell you. And then a couple other boys came because they were in the similar situations as well, and but it just goes to show, there's a season for everything.
Right.
And had I not taken the job at Garfield,
Mm-hmm.
I would have been oblivious to the fact that there's 19,000, homeless students in these districts in King County.
Right.
And I'm saying to myself, how is that in this day and age? How is that possible? You know?
Yeah.
And so it blew me away. But God puts us in people's life for a reason. Um, you know, when Carrington left, the program and graduated from Garfield, and that was a great day because he was one of
It
those
is a
kids.
great day.
He battled and he battled, and he was he was a mid-level student. He had a couple, you know, disabilities, learning disabilities, but he fought through. And then I got a phone call. I don't know what, last summer. I was flying in at Los Angeles that he had been shot,
Oh
and
my gosh.
he got shot 3 times and 2 times in the head.
Oh,
And so immediately when I came back to Seattle, I went to go see him in the hospital, and it was gang related. Everything that, and I reflected when I walked in the hospital room, and they had him in a neck brace, and I instantly started crying. And I told him, he said, "Coach, I know what you're gonna say." And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "You're gonna say I told you so." And I said, "No, I'm not gonna say that. I'm not gonna say that." Because one of the things that I used to teach the boys is, hey, when you guys horseplay and the horse playing turns into a fighting,
Hmm.
anything can happen, right? Anything can happen.
Yeah.
And boys, that's, hey, boys gonna be boys, right? Teenagers gonna be teenagers. Well, he was in a situation where he was out late. I think it was like 1 a.m. at the park, and I think they was kind of slap boxing or whatever. And one guy got mad, the other guy got mad or whatever. He called the guy came with a gun and just started shooting and
wow.
hit him 2 times in the head. Now he's paralyzed. He's in a wheelchair,
Yeah.
Oh, that's
you know,
heartbreaking.
and it just broke my heart. And here's the same kid that grew up in homelessness. Mom is on, dire needs, right? Don't know his dad, or know his dad, but the dad lives on the East Coast but has no relationship with him. And it just broke my heart that this is the cards that
Yeah.
this kid dealt. And man, I just, it's heartbreaking. I actually had a conversation with him yesterday. Um, just what do you say?
Yeah.
I love you and keep fighting. That's what you said.
Yeah.
This world we live in is a messy place
It sure is.
oftentimes, but whether it's what you're doing with that campaign or whether it's Cleats versus Cancer, all that we can really do is what you said repeatedly today, which is
Answer the call.
answer the call.
Yeah.
Answer.
And I'm so proud of you for what you're doing. It's exciting to see, and I can't wait for the TV show. It's going to be an
Right.
interesting thing because this might mess around and give me my chance
I know.
in acting. I've been
Amen.
telling people, hey, Samuel, and man,
Let's
mess
do
around.
it.
How old was Samuel when he got started acting? Shoot, I might mess around and be an old school coach out there and tell him, I don't get strokes, I give them. I'm gonna have my opportunity on this show. You don't ever know what's gonna happen.
Hey, claim it, claim that. I love it.
But you know what? I do have to ask you because you've had an incredible journey through life, and you've done so much and accomplished so much and given back so much. But I have to ask, what does the future look like for Derek Sparks?
It's powerful.
I think oftentimes we try to articulate and come up with different plans for our life moving forward. And I'm one of those persons now where, or one of those people now where I'm I'm fully okay with God being in control.
Yeah, amen.
And so whatever He has planned for me is what it's gonna be. But one thing I do know, I'm gonna continue to answer the call and the things that are set in front of me and the things I've committed to, and I'm gonna continue that. And things happen. When you're living and you're doing the things you're supposed to be doing, things happen. And so what I tell young people all the time, as long as you standing on the sideline, you ain't gonna make no plays.
That's right.
Right.
You ain't gonna make no plays being a spectator. You better
Uh-huh.
you better get in the game, man. You better get in the game. And I don't care if you a backup or whatever the case may be, but you got to get in the game of life, man, and start making some plays for yourself. And so, I take heed to my own words. And so I'm in the game. I'm out here doing things that hopefully, folks will say, hey, we want to be a part of that. Um, but at the end of the day, we're leaving a legacy and a legacy to leave behind. Um, I'm very conscious about, the dash that we live. You got to make sure that dash you live in counts.
That's right.
So
You
true.
know, if you ain't got nothing to show for it, man, woe to the man that forfeited everything, right?
Yep.
And so I'm so conscious about that, and I talk about it all the time. People look at me like I'm crazy when I start talking about the dash and I start talking about answering the call,
But
and
own it.
and, and I don't know any other way to live now
Hmm.
because
So good.
once you know, you have to continue to have that conversation with everybody,
Yeah.
you know. And so people ask me, I'm not taking credit for it. I'm answering the call. Well, what are you trying to accomplish? I'm trying to leave a legacy and my mark that God has blessed me. I was supposed to be a blessing to other folks and other people,
So
you know.
good.
And so that's what I'm doing, and I'm happy. Um, um, and whatever's next for me is what it's gonna be.
Whatever's next for you is going to be something special.
For sure.
There are very few people that own the dash quite like you owned between tackle and tackle. You are a distance man. If I've ever seen him, got a long distance in you, can take it for 80 or get you the tough 4 or 5 yards that you need for that first down. Derek, it's been an honor to have you on here, man, because you got my mind racing
Right.
on the things I need to control my
Yeah.
dash. I'm like, hold up. I started 1972. I don't know when the end is, but I
Yeah.
can't control the beginning. I can't control the end, but I can have an influence on that dash. And he answers the call and nearly every time he's ever been called a question.
Yeah.
Anytime an opportunity's presented itself to make a difference, that's who Derek Sparks is. And I don't know if he got that from being a freshman, a sophomore, or junior, having to transition so many times in his life.
Mm-hmm.
But you have an incredible story, my friend.
So true.
And I'm so happy to be a part of telling it, being a part of it, and getting it out to the world, man. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Hey man, thank you for having me. Thank you for befriending me. I remember it. I'll never forget it. I'll never forget it because we both had that bald head,
Come on.
right? And man, I remember it, and I tell people all the time. I was like, man, me and Richard, we spoke at a couple schools together, and I got my iron sharp as iron. That was real to me,
Amen to that.
to see you in action and to see how you bless people. I had to really question, hey man, am I supposed to be doing this? Because it don't come out the same when Richard says it, right?
Just got to keep working the gift, baby.
And I kept working my gift, man, and refining
Yeah.
it. And so thank you, man. Thank you, my friend.
It's an honor.
And to see your son, to see Peyton, and have an opportunity to have interactions with him. Because I remember when he was just a little boy, getting around Pop, and what he's been through and where he's going. And he's a handsome young man.
That he is.
He is
Hey,
indeed.
It might give me an opportunity to throw a picture up of him and just wow the ladies out there.
yes, hey, he is soft spoken. And the only thing I regret is not being able to coach him here at PLU. But I understand that, hey, you got to go and find your way and go.
Yeah, he wanted some separation from daddy. He
Yeah.
said, you a rough one, father.
Yes, yes.
PLU
So,
is a little too close to home for him.
Yes, indeed. But he loves you. he was excited. That was a heartbreaking decision for him. Was you. Not to say that PLU isn't phenomenal, it absolutely is. But where he's at right now gives him the separation he wants, and he's taking full advantage of it.
Yes,
I said,
he
man,
is.
COVID-19. He said, COVID, nothing. I'm free. I don't care if I'm on lockdown by myself. I'm good.
Oh man, that's awesome.
So,
Well, hey, thank you for letting me be on the show, and yeah, let's keep this thing going.
come on, it's a pleasure, man.
All right, always.
Hey, everybody, as you can see, there are so many messages that come out of our mess.
Yeah.
And sometimes we get caught up on the mess that we're involved in or we're trapped in. But Derek Sparks is an example of somebody who can take a mess and get a message out of it.
Definitely.
And I'll tell you all the time, it's not the obstacles that are in front of you, but it's the vision in the inside of you that'll get you to your full potential. And we're all about empowering you to live a good life, to live your full life. I'm Richard Thomas.
And I'm Tiffany Thomas.
And we want to thank you for being a part of the Lionheart episode today. I hope you got a lot out of it.
Please be sure to subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. The more subscriptions we have to our channel, the more stories like Derek's we can put out there, and the inspiration that he brings. I know I was definitely inspired by him. So please, subscribe to our channel so we can get more stories like his out there. Hit the bell. Make sure you get the notifications of our latest videos. And we very much just appreciate you.
And we're going to include all of his bio info down below. So for sure, check out Cleats versus Cancer. Sign up where you can, donate where you can. And I'd encourage you to purchase his book, whether you read it and give it away, or whether you give it to somebody for Christmas. It is a great read, and anybody that has a chance to listen to it will benefit from it. God bless you, and thanks for being a part of the Lionheart Institute podcast today.